Sports Box.
Radio Sport, every Monday, of course, we talk a little AFL on the program before 3. 4 games every weekend on Duke Television here in New Zealand. Channel 13 on Freeview, Channel 23 on Sky Television. We'll look ahead to some of the big games to look forward to a little bit later this week and cover off some other big games in the competition. Kevin Sheehan joins our program, who's the National AFL Talent Manager across the Tassie, and he played more than 100 games for the Geelong Cats in the AFL comp. Kevin, welcome to Radio Sport. How are you?
Terrific, Kent. Great to be with you and your listeners. My lifetime has been in footy, and I think I've got one of the best jobs in the world, watching games and trying to identify some of the best young talent to make it through our draft system.
Can you name for us the best young talented player that you personally can claim credit for identifying?
Look, I can probably claim a few, but I'll claim watching Lance Buddy Franklin unfold. Now, he's a star, of course, now with the Sydney Swans and a former Hawk that's kicked over 100 goals in a year and still right at the top of his game. And I was at a practice match over in Western Australia, and it's just a trial match, the best under-18s from their state against a composite side of under-20 players. He kicked 80 and a half a game. 8 goals in half a game. They shifted him then to defence to try and cover him up a bit, but I think the bird had flown. We'd seen a young boy, a 17-year-old Indigenous boy that could really play this game, and it was just so exciting to be there. Probably 100 people there watching at the time, but we thought there is an absolute ripper, this, and you just check the name again, Lance, and they kept calling him the Buddy, the Budster, and he's become one of the superstars of the game. And he'll be in action against his old club when Sydney play Hawthorn on Thursday night this week.
Hey, Kevin, how often is it that you look at a young kid and go, that is can't miss potential? How many players do you honestly see like that?
Well, I think there's probably a handful a year, to be honest. Our system needs about 100 drafted every year, 100 good enough to make it. But you'll go to games, and we've just come off our national under-18 championships, and then our under-16 nationals, where the best kids in the country are assembled. And at times you'll go to a game and it might be a wee bit flattish, and you just see some good hard-working boys that might make the grade. And other times you go, wow, that was a pick-me game from a youngster where he just says, I am good enough, look what I can do. And that's exciting. We've got over 200 scouts that work full-time in our game now under our draft system. They're the ones that have to do the hard choosing later in the year. We have to promote it. We have to manage it, the whole process. But it is pretty exciting when you see those sorts of boys emerge with that brilliant individual performance.
And it was Franklin Swans that got the better of Geelong. I think a top 2-3 clash, this one, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, they were devastating. And it was a very special game for the Swans. Kieran Jack, the son of Gary Jack, a rugby league legend, of course. Kieran's a star for the Swans, the captain, and he was playing his 200th game. And I think that meant a lot to the Swans players. And they haven't had great success down there at Geelong. It's a very, very tough ground to win at when you travel down to Geelong, and they did the job very, very comfortably. And I think they look awesome at the minute, the Swans, the Sydney Swans, and may well end up the main challenger to the Hawks, who, of course, have won 3 premierships on the trot and would now be favourites once again this year as they now emerged as the top side in the competition at this point in time after round 16.
I remember a couple of years ago, Kevin, we had that grand final with so much build-up and anticipation, Sydney Hawthorn, and the Hawks just blew them off the park in the first half, and it became a bit of a dud game. If we were to get a repeat of that, and we've got a little precursor this Thursday with the Swans hosting the Hawks, do you think it would be closer than it was 2 years ago?
I think so, yeah. A lot of water under the bridge since 2 years ago. The Hawks are getting older, but they're still as good, or many of them are. But Jared Roughhead's a vital out for them. He's a young man that's at the top of his game, but he's really going through a challenge to beat cancer at the moment. He's out for the next, until next season at least, and he's one of their superstars as a key forward. So they're not quite as good in as good a shape as they've been the last 3 years, the Hawks, and they've got some emerging young players. I think it'd be more of a contest, and I think the Swans, if they get there, would be smarting. They'd have bitter memories of that day where they just didn't perform. They'd left it all the previous week on the track, I think, and it was one of the flatter grand finals. But that's the way it may go. But you look at an even season, you just look at that ladder, and there's just nothing between virtually the second side, Sydney, with 44 points, and the eighth side, North Melbourne, with 40. Just one game between seven sides, and Hawthorn are just a game clear of that group. So even, and so many ebbs and flows in this season that there's a fair bit still to play out.
Yeah, there's definitely a distinctive split, though, isn't there, Kevin, between the eighth-placed Kangaroos, and my God, haven't they dropped down the table, and Port, 3 wins behind. Is the top 8 pretty much set in stone already?
It looks locked away, doesn't it? But you never know, because as you say, with North Melbourne, we're on top of the ladder and then have just had so many losses in a row that there could be a side fall apart, and maybe it's a Port or a Melbourne or Collingwood now on a bit of a burst at the minute, and a wonderful win over the Giants at the weekend, one of the top 8 sides, and they look ominous just for the minute, and maybe 3 or 4 wins in a row, you might see them make a surge towards 7th or 8th spot. So there'll be a fair bit of interest in it, and as there is every weekend over here in Australia when the AFL's played, we all love to have our opinion. We're often wrong, but that's all okay, and we'll debate it again on the Monday.
That's exactly how it should be, too. Kevin Sheehan talking some AFL with us on Radio Sport this afternoon. Sunday afternoon, we've got the Demons, a team that I've had a bit of a soft spot for, Kevin, featuring Max Gawn, and they're up against Shane Savage's Saints. How do you like that one?
Yeah, I think Melbourne are probably going the better at the minute. The Saints struggle to get over the line. Shane Savage, of course, one of the New Zealand-born boys that plays in the AFL. A big Maxie Gawn, hasn't he got one beard on him? Just that he looks like the Bush Ranger from 100-odd years ago. Big Maxie, as the beards are pretty much favoured as the look in the AFL these days. There's half of us in every team, I think, and Max is one of the giants of the game in terms of his size, about 208 centimetre giant, about 6'10", and he's having a wonderful year for Melbourne.
Look, tell us too about this young, talented Kiwi, Connor Bellenden, who is being talked about as possibly a number 1 draft pick. How good is he?
Yeah, he's a boy that will be in the draft next year, not this year. He's a boy from Queensland that come from New Zealand. I think that Mum and Dad may have met the South Africans at one stage that spent some time in South Africa. And so he's a boy that, like many, that will probably settle on the sport that's played predominantly in the country he ends up living in. So he was a boy that spent some time playing rugby in New Zealand, but now he's fallen in love with AFL. And he's a boy that's around 195 centimetres, 196, so it's a genuine 6'5", and he would play as a key forward, a big marking target up forward. We saw him dominate at our underage championships, and really is in great shape. He played in New Zealand earlier this year. We bring our NAB AFL Academy across each year, and we play around Anzac weekend against your open age New Zealand side. So he's a star in that game, and that's a good lead to what might happen in a couple of years' time with the draft. So big Connor Bellenden is a boy to watch as a New Zealand-born youngster. Jesse Hogan, a name you may have heard of, a star from Melbourne, was a star for our Australian under-17s in a corresponding game against New Zealand a few years back, and he's emerged to be one of the superstar tall forwards of the comp. And Bellenden's a bit like a Jesse Hogan.
Hey, look, thanks very much for the lowdown, Kevin. Nice to talk a bit of footy with you this week or this Monday, and hopefully we'll get you on the show again sometime soon, eh?
We look forward to it, Kent, and good luck to all those that are following the AFL. May your side be successful come September.
Like the Demons, and they're still 3 wins out of the 8. Goodness me. Kevin Sheehan, former Geelong star, played more than 100 games for the club, talking to us on the program. He's also the National AFL Talent Manager. So a couple of games to look forward to this week. It's round 17. On Thursday, it'll be the Swannies up against the Hawks. And then on Sunday afternoon, as we mentioned, Kiwi Shane Savage. He's really kicked on for St Kilda. They play the Mighty D's. Kiwi Max Gawn playing in that game as well. 4 games every weekend in the AFL. Check it out, of course, Channel 23 on Sky Television and on Channel 13 on Freeview. The top 8 looks to be done and dusted because there is a big 12-point gap between the 8th placed Kangaroos and the 9th placed Power, and 12 points in that competition is 3 wins. So the top 8, Hawthorn, Sydney, Adelaide, the Western Bulldogs, the West Coast Eagles, Geelong, the Giants from West Sydney and North Melbourne. The Kangaroos at one point, the Kangaroos I think started the season 10-0, out and out top side. They've lost 5 games on the bounce. They've fallen to 8. But it will be highly unlikely that they would miss out on the playoffs. So we'll talk a little AFL again next Monday on Radio Sport. Thanks to Duke Television, Channel 13 on Freeview and 23 on Sky.